So appropriately, as we drive through Coral Gables, my hometown where I live, this is a 6-month look back at the performance of Coral Gables from March until the end of September for 2019. Let's get into this. So as we look back over the last 6 months, as per usual, with all our reports and all our neighborhoods, we break down the market by price point. We go from $0 to $1 million, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 5, and 5 and above. Now, the interesting thing about Coral Gables is it is a big market. It is the biggest geographical market that we have in Miami. We really subdivide it by about 6 different sectors. Each behave differently. Each have very, very different price points. And this is really key because when you look at the market, you're not looking at the same area. It's not like Coconut Grove. It's not like other markets like Pinecrest. It's very different. So we're going to start with a $0 to $1 million. So the $0 to $1 million range, there's a number of neighborhoods within Coral Gables where you can get these up to $1 million homes. It's actually much easier to get $1 million home in Coral Gables than it is in, say, Coconut Grove, just because there's so much more land, there's a much bigger area. But ultimately, here's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with values between, say, $330 to $385 a square foot. But most importantly, giving you some statistics, it's just 4.9 months of inventory. That's from the last count. On average, we're selling about 13 homes per month. And that is actually a very quick absorption. It's a very fast buy-up rate. You've only got about 80 average days on the market. So what you're going to find is that you're into contract within 80 days, you're closing in another 30 to 45. And that in itself puts us at the very top of the market. This is the strongest market in the whole of Miami. So it's giving you a score of 92 on our neighborhood economic health score. Make sure you go and click on our neighborhood economic health score in our live analytics page to give you more details. Now, what kind of houses are we talking about here? Let's get into the product. We're walking down a street called Madrid in Coral Gables. And these pockets around, you're talking homes that are, like I said, up to maybe 2,500 square feet. You're dealing with the old Spanish. You're dealing with ranch style homes. These are the houses that typically you're going to be dealing with. You won't deal with a new house. Of course you won't. But you will get a good quality home, and lots will range somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 square foot lots. You may get bigger than that. You may get a 12 or a 13,000 square foot lot, but this ultimately will be very close to a tear down. So this market of Coral Gables up to $1 million is actually very strong and getting stronger. This is one of the few markets where if you're buying into it, you don't want to wait because things aren't going to get weaker. With only 4.9 months of inventory, product will continue to get stronger and stronger and stronger. This is an example of a house that we sold in 2018. 1314 Milan, we sold it for $650,000. It was an 815 square foot house. Today, it's probably worth a little bit more. So again, as always, you give me a call and I can give you more specifics about, the individual properties available in this market and what we might expect to see going into 2020. So here's some specific statistics on this market. You've got 119 days on the market. That's the time it takes to actually close, which means you're getting into contract in 70 to 80 days. Dollar per square foot between generally $330 to $385. Now, we have seen some very high dollar per square foot. We saw a record at $536. If you get a really, really well done home, top of the line finishes, totally renovated, near perfect, then that is a possible price you could say to achieve, but it has to fit every single box. What's interesting is the achieved sales price is 95% of asking, which again is very, very good. And it's the reason why we have such high scores. Now, when you go through the neighborhoods, there's a lot of variety. Give me a call. We're right now walking down a street called Milan, and you've got Milan, Obispo, Sololo. This is one pocket of Coral Gables where you can get these kind of homes. There's other pockets too. And again, as I flash up on the screen, you'll see these different pockets through different parts of Coral Gables where you can buy homes up to $1 million. On to the next price point, 1 to 2. So now we get into the 1 to 2 million range. And as we're doing this, we're walking around the Coral Gables golf course, actually around Granada. And you can see the location obviously starts to improve a little bit here. These homes, again, you'll get ranch homes, you'll get old Spanish. You'll rarely get new homes at this price point. You may get one or two, but really not very many. So please don't hang your hat out there looking for a new home under $2 million. It's very, very hard. But here's the takeaway from the last 6 months' performance in the 1 to 2 million range. We've got 9.7 months of inventory. It's actually very, very good. Again, it's still 9 is stable. So it's really, really stable. Dollar per square foot, you could get around 400, but really honestly expect to pay somewhere between 435 and 485. That is the kind of the blended range average. Of course, you can go over 500 a square foot as well. I mean, again, that's normal. You can get some homes on bigger lots. Lots somewhere between 10 and 12,000. Again, you can get bigger lots. If you live on the golf course, you can pay a little bit more. But ultimately, this is a good, stable market. It's performing well. I don't think it's really changed much from the 6 months before that. It might have softened a little bit once you get to some of towards more of the higher end homes that are, let's say, bigger, but not as well finished. So they've softened a little bit. But, it's still a strong market. And if we look at the grand scheme of things over Coconut Grove and Pinecrest and other neighborhoods, Coral Gables is still performing very, very well. Why? Mainly because of tax-free locations. It is a neighborhood with the best schools, the best place to live. It's got a good quality of life for families. And this is what drives people here every single day and will continue to drive people through into 2020. Next, the 2 to 3 million range. Now we jump into the 2 to 3 million range in Coral Gables. This is a very different band, and actually months of inventory now escalates up to nearly 16 months. There were 29 sales in the last 6 months. Nearly half of those were actually on the waterfront. 13 were waterfront. But if you're not on the water, you're in places like this with houses like this, which this house actually backs up to the golf course. When you go through the Gables, you are dealing with a lot of waterfront and gated and golf course front homes in the 2 to 3 million range. This is where you'll see the majority of this product because it doesn't exist in other neighborhoods. Coconut Grove doesn't have it, and Coral Gables rarely has it as well. So again, this is the kind of product. And next, we're going to actually look at one of the homes that achieved the highest dollar per square foot in the last 6 months in the 2 to 3 million range. So the top dollar achieved in Coral Gables in the last 6 months on a dry lot was in at $567 a square foot, which was my listing here at 1549 San Rafael. Why and how? Well, very simply put, this was better finished than anything else in the market. It was a brand new construction, brand new home, very high level grade finishes. Now, it's important to remember that new homes aren't necessarily hitting the highest dollar per square foot because sometimes they're incomplete. They don't have built-out closets, they don't have wallpaper, they don't have all the fine finishes or the lighting or the sound systems. This one did, which obviously put it at the top of the spectrum. Now again, relative to price point, it's important to recognize that as you move further up the food chain, expectations grow. And next, we're going to discuss the 3 to 5 million range. Now we get into the 3 to 5 million range, and appropriately, I'm actually standing outside a house, 141 Rosales, which is now coming to the market for a touch over $5 million. This market, you're talking waterfront homes, you're talking gated homes, you're talking golf course front homes. If you have any of those in this price range, not that many, but it's really gated. Now we're standing in Coco Plum, which is a beautiful gated community. And if you look at those gated communities in Coral Gables, which are really the most salubrious, the most expensive, the most desired, you're dealing with Coco Plum, Snapper Creek, Hammock Oaks. These are good examples of properties, of neighborhoods where you'll find these kind of properties. So of the 17 homes sold in the last 6 months, which represents obviously our months of inventory at 27.6, 12 of those 17 were on the water. So clearly waterfront is what is predominantly selling at this price point. And when we look at the dollar per square foot, we've got an average of $589. Now, of course, once you move up to the waterfront area, you're dealing with escalated dollar per square foot. But what you will also find is that there's a lot of product in this market. So there's a lot of choice. And the take home from this is there is opportunity within this area. You can get deals. And we are seeing waterfront homes in places like Coco Plum, where we are right now, which will come in around $4 million for a nice home on the water. Now, these have a couple of bridges to the bay. If you move further up the canal, it'll obviously cheapen because now you have less direct access to the ocean. So let's discuss how this 3 to 5 market has reacted since last year. It's not an immeasurable difference. It's not a huge difference between last year to this year. Days on the market certainly expanded a little bit. But if you compare this market in the 3 to 5 range compared to other neighborhoods around Miami, it's still doing much, much better. And why? Mainly because of tax refugees, because of relocations. Those are the buyers who are coming to live in the neighborhoods where there is essentially the best schools, the safest environment, the nicest single-family homes, the primary residential markets of Coral Gables, Coconut Grove, and Pinecrest. So still a good market, but there's a lot of opportunity. And again, with more opportunity, with more product, there's more room for negotiations. So again, read the extended report and call me for more information on that. So now we're looking at the 5+ range, and this is the 5 up to, well, the sky's the limit. And ultimately, when you get to this level, of course, you're talking waterfront. There's been 7 sales in the last 6 months, 6 of those obviously on the water. And really, and ultimately, you're talking about gated waterfront communities. Right now, we're in Journey's End. You've got Journey's End, Snapper Creek, Hammock Oaks, Tahiti Beach. This is obviously the prime real estate that we have in Coral Gables, and it's arguably some of the most prime real estate communities that you can have in the whole of Miami. Now, dollar per square foot here, you're talking about $8.59, but it obviously can go up, and it has gone up and will go higher than well over $1,000. If you want to understand this market that is the 5 and 8 and 8 and plus range, give me a call. I mean, I work these gated communities extensively. Right now, we're actually on Old Cutler Bay. And whether it's Old Cutler Bay or Hammock Oaks or Journey's End or Snapper Creek or Tahiti Beach, I'll be able to help. As we walk past this house to my right here, was last sold in the last 6 months for just over $8 million. And continuing as you go through, you're going to be dealing with a waterfront home. Now, dollar per square foot, as I said, $8.59 a square foot has been somewhat of an average, but quite easily it will go up from that. This is also important to recognize that when we look on the water, we also talk about what I call waterfront, bayfront, and peninsula front. Peninsula front is directly on the ocean. There is no bridges out to the bay. There's no canals. You're actually looking at the open ocean. And again, there's actually 42 homes that sit in Miami on the peninsula front area of the water, which actually runs from Tahiti Beach, going south all the way down Old Cutler. So as usual, and as always, we hope you enjoyed this video. We hope you enjoyed understanding about the Coral Gables market. Please read the article, read the blog, pick up the phone, give me a call, use our website to search for property. And as always, we look forward to helping you and seeing you soon.